Hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. I don't think I've ever been here on a Tuesday. um, if I have, it's been years. But hello and welcome. I hope you guys are doing well tonight. Welcome to What About Your Friends? This is actually not the first segment that I've done for What About Your Friends, but it is the first segment that I've done in a really long time. Probably almost a year since I've done a What About Your Friends segment. And I'm really, really excited about this conversation because I think it is extremely helpful as well as long overdue. Let me do my intro really, really quickly. Hello, I am Soleil. I am the founder and facilitator of the Charm School Mentorship Program. I am your weekly reader. I'm a certified life coach, teacher, and educator. And I'm a dope bitch straight up out of Oakland. Hello, hello, hello. Come on in the room. Let me turn the music off so I can hear myself. Come on in the room. Get settled, get comfortable. Say hello in the chat so that I know who's here. If you've been here before, you know that I like for the space to be interactive. Hello, Dulcinea. Hello, Aisha. So the What About Your Friends segment is a segment that I started doing a few years ago because I think that it's really unhealthy to be an adult and who doesn't have friends. I'm not saying that you need to be mixy. I'm not saying that you need to be friends with everybody, but at least a handful of friends that you can go to, that you can talk to is really important. And these started off as coaching conversations that I gave to the community, just because I think there is a deep tie between coaching work and spiritual guidance work that is extremely important to talk about and cultivate. So these are conversations that I have to help people who either have found themselves in adulthood without solid friendships or people who have had falling outs with their friendships, right? As we grow older, the needs of our friendships change, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Or if you're somebody who's just starting a new chapter in life, right? You've moved overseas, you moved out of state, you moved into a new environment, and you are trying to rebuild your friendship circle. I think that these are all conversations that are really, really helpful for us, right? Platonic intimacy is a very, very deep form of intimacy. And it's unfortunately not one that we prioritize in our society, right? Especially when it comes to women. We are taught that a good job, having marriage, having a man, having a spouse is our signifiers of success. But healthy friendships are as well, right? And being able to not only maintain friendships, knowing how to deal with conflict in friendships, knowing how to reconcile a friendship that you miss. Those are all important skill sets to have when we want to have healthy communities. And this is why I have this particular segment. Again, I have neglected it for reasons that I will not go into on this live because I'm in a good mood, but it is a segment that got neglected over the last couple of years, and I really, really want to get back to it being at least a monthly conversation that we have, okay? So tonight we're specifically going to be talking about navigating female friendships in adulthood. And the reason why I'm focusing on female friendships in adulthood is for a variety of reasons, right? Our needs in friendships change in adulthood, and we don't talk about that. The difficulties that come with trying to maintain friendships in adulthood also get more complicated. And we have to talk about that, right? Not in a way where we use them as excuses to not nurture and develop friendships, but talking about them in a way that we develop strategy so that we can make sure that we have community and support around us. You guys have heard me say this before. I am deeply sick of people who want villages but don't know how to be villagers, right? People who want community but aren't thinking about what it is about their actions, their habits, their viewpoints that are leading to a dearth of friendship and community. And so this is my opportunity to give back in terms of service, in terms of providing these skills and strategies to us so that we can do better, be better, and experience better. Okay? So one of the core questions that I want us to think about throughout this live tonight, and I'm going to pose it to you all. How do you allow yourself to remain open to meaningful friendships after you've been hurt by the women that you've trusted? How do you remain open to meaningful friendships after you've been hurt by the women you've trusted? Okay? If you don't have an answer, that's totally fine. If you have an answer now, I want to urge you to share it if you feel comfortable. If throughout our conversation you start to realize like, oh, this is something that I've done before, share that wisdom, okay? But this is one of the core questions that I really want us to be thinking about throughout this conversation. How do we remain open to meaningful friendships after we've been hurt by women that we've trusted, okay? So another question, and I just want you guys to think about, have you ever found out that someone stopped speaking to you, not because you did something to them, right? Not because you said something to them, you harmed them in any direct way, but because they inherited someone else's opinion of you? I've been there. I've been there multiple times. And I remember the very first time it happened to me, I was in middle school. There was a young lady who was in my class, and I invited her to my home. And I didn't know that she had sticky fingers at the time that I invited her to my house. And I learned that the hard way when she swiped a couple of things. And it wasn't just one thing, she swiped a couple of things from my bedroom. Okay? And after that, I had a conversation with my mom, and my mom was like, she's not allowed to come here anymore because she steals, right? Which is a reasonable thing for a parent to put into place. A few months later, I had my birthday party, and I was passing out invitations, and I unfortunately did not give one to her. And I was trying not to say anything, but several of the girls in the class were like, that's so mean, you didn't give... I'm not going to say her name. You didn't give, I'm trying to think of a name. Angela. You didn't give Angela an invitation, right? And at first I wasn't saying anything, but people kept pressuring me. People were calling me mean. And then finally I blurted out, my mom says she can't come over because she steals, right? And I didn't feel good about it. But again, peer pressure. I was only 11 years old. I was in middle school. So I blurted it out, and about a good 4 of those girls got mad at me for saying something. And they didn't come to my party, and they tried to talk other people into not coming to my party, right? And I remember very, very distinctly being, transitioning from 11 into 12 because it was my 12th birthday, and thinking to myself, I cannot wait till I'm an adult so that I never have to deal with things like this again. When I'm grown up, I'm never going to have to deal with these kind of things again. Unfortunately, that has not been true. That is a form of socialization, right? That triangulation, that borrowing beef from other people that a lot of women don't grow out of. A lot of people don't develop beyond. They continue that habit into adulthood, right? And so something that we are responsible for doing is A, holding ourselves accountable in ways that we don't show up like that, but B, also making sure that we don't attach ourselves through friendship, through that bond, to other people that behave that way, right? We spend a lot of time talking about romantic relationships. We spend a lot of time, especially when we get to adulthood, obsessing over romantic relationships, figuring out what we need to do, who we need to be, what we need to say in order to be able to not only get into a romantic relationship, but to keep them. But we rarely discuss any of the grief, betrayal, and the healing involved that is a result of friendship, right? That is necessary in terms of maintaining and experiencing platonic intimacy, right? And there are a lot of reasons for this. I mentioned earlier that we don't talk about having friendship circles as being a sign of success the same way that we do marriage, right? We don't talk about friendship, and especially when it comes to women, I think friendship is very much infantilized. It's something that's attached to girlhood. And when we talk about these labels of like the bad bitch or the boss lady or the successful woman, we think about them as somebody who's super isolated and super alone, right? So that's one reason why we don't value or we don't prioritize female friendship in adulthood. Another reason is that it's difficult, right? Friendship in childhood is a lot easier. When we become adults, there are a lot of things that become, I don't want to say hindrances, but will complicate our ability to have friendships, right? We have careers. And especially if you are in community with people who don't have the same career as you, it can be difficult to carve out that time, right? Our marriages, right? Especially though, if you were taught about marriage in a very conservative environment, you may be of the belief that friendships don't matter as long as you have a marriage, right? I fortunately was raised on the West Coast, and that is not a belief that I was raised on, but I know that a lot of people do have that belief, right? That as long as you are married, friendship doesn't matter. Parenting is complicated. And when you become a parent, you don't always have the bandwidth to hold space for other people. That's just a reality, right? Caregiving. Some of us are responsible for caregiving the adults in our lives. We are now that we are adults and our elders are up in age, we are responsible for taking care of them, nurturing them, and watching them. So we may not be able to even have the space or the capacity to nurture friendships the way that we used to, right? Finances. This is a difficult one, and we don't talk about this. I have a whole other What About Your Friends segment that I'm going to be doing in August that talks about financial differences in friendships, right? Because that's a character issue. I know people don't want to hear it, but that is a character issue. Judging your friends off of your finances is a character issue, but we're going to save that conversation for August, okay? Trauma also impacts our ability to maintain friendships in adulthood, right? If there are certain types of trauma that you've lived through and experienced, and you are in friendship with people who don't know how to honor or hold space for that, or who may pass judgments on you for that, right? That can be a difficult thing. But also mental health. Everybody doesn't have the capacity to honor everybody's mental health status, right? Those are all things that can lead to difficulties with maintaining friendships in adulthood, right? Now, I don't believe that they are reasons, excuses, or justifications for not having friends. I think acknowledging how those things can complicate friendships is really important, but they do serve as challenges, right? And that's because when we are in childhood, we don't have those same problems, right? Think about the friendships that you began as a teenager. Think about those friendships I shared my middle school experience with you all, right? Think about those friendships that you started in middle school, in high school, maybe even in your early college years, right? Think about what helped those friendships develop, right? Those friendships were based on proximity. The person that I called my best friend for 19 years was my roommate in college. We are nowhere near the same women now. And a huge part of the falling out of that friendship had to do with the fact that those differences, right? But teenage friendships, childhood friendships are built on proximity. You are in the same classes with certain people. So you're studying for those classes together. You're sharing notes. If you were about that life, you may be cheating on the same tests, right? But you are in the same classes with those people. You grew up in the same neighborhoods. You went to the same churches. You may have a friendship from your teenage or childhood years because you guys as parents were friends, right? So there's a lot about proximity, closeness that fuels childhood friendships. Once you step into adulthood and life takes you in different places and your time becomes scarce, right? Because you have children, because you have a spouse, because you are now working, you have aging parents, you are also dealing with the burnout of life, right? Those are all things that make those friendships harder to maintain, right? But a lack of availability isn't always a lack of love, right? So just because those things fill up your life doesn't mean that you throw people away. It means that your expectations need to change. I have friends that I probably speak to once a season or once or twice a year. And when I speak to them, it feels like we just pick up from the last place we left off of, right? So, yeah, we're not sitting on the phone talking every day or every couple of days the way that we did in high school, but that doesn't mean that I love them any less, right? Everyone is carrying different wounds. Everyone is carrying different responsibilities, right? And some of the wounds that we accumulate in adulthood can be things that make it hard for us to maintain friendships, and we have to talk about it that way. You have to be honest about that, right? Some women are afraid of rejection, right? That happens a lot. People who are afraid of rejection will reject or push away because of their own fear of being rejected, right? Some women are afraid of intimacy. You burn me once or twice, it's hard for me to be open to the next bitch, right? I know that what I just said may sound familiar to some of you because a lot of you carry that. I know. I've had the conversations with you all, right? Some women are also afraid of competition, right? A lot of people choose to be a big fish in a small pond. I have watched some women choose to not have friendships because they don't want to be around another woman who may be as pretty as them, cook as well as them, as articulate as them. They want to be the sole princess in their environment. So they will choose to not have friends and will turn their family members into their only friends because their family pedestalizes them. So they get to be queen in a particular way, right? So sometimes when women are afraid of competition, that can become a difficulty in terms of maintaining friendships. Some women are also afraid of abandonment, right? And that goes back to that rejection wound. If I'm afraid of abandonment, it's easier for me to just not have friends. Because if I believe that if I have friends, they're going to leave me at some point, what's the point, right? Those are all different wounds and fears that can overtly and directly shape friendships and our ability to maintain friendships, okay? So sometimes people react out of old wounds instead of reacting from their present reality, right? And here's another thing. A lot of people are wounded teenagers and wounded children walking around in adult bodies. So just because they have gotten older and accumulated degrees and developed life experiences, that doesn't mean that they've worked on and learned how to navigate those wounds, right? So those are things that can impact their adult friendships. If I'm walking around with the same programming from 11-year-old me, and I'm judging the friendships that I built off of proximity, closeness, shared classes, familiar relationships, and I'm operating off of what made those friendship works in my adult 30-something, 40-something, 50-year-old body, then of course it's going to strain my adult friendships. Because the things that are necessary to sustain an adult friendship are vastly different than what my 11-year-old self needed, right? Adult friendships require effort. They require healthy communication. They have to be built on compatibility, right? Are you even compatible with these people? There were times where I found myself in friendships that were just completely based on gossip. I have to take ownership of that. People who only wanted to sit around and talk about other people. And instead of me having the backbone to either shift the conversation or let those people go, I fell into the fold. And I started gossiping. And then when I would get tired and not want to gossip anymore, I was treated like a bitch because this is what we do. We talk about people. Why are you acting stuck up? I should not have compromised in that way, right? Those were incompatible friendships. I'd much rather sit around and talk about money and travel. I'd much rather daydream, right? But also emotional maturity. Are you emotionally mature enough to understand when you are giving more than you take or when you are taking more than you give, right? I want to go back to this childlike understanding of what friendship is. There are a lot of people who don't know how to be in their two of cups energy. They don't know how to have reciprocal exchange. They are good at always being in emergency, always being in crisis, always being the person that wants to call you at 3 in the morning. But the second that their friend has a need and expresses that need, they feel attacked. They feel victimized. They feel put upon, right? And that can be really, really painful to be the person that's always giving grace. And then the moment that you need grace, you are being made to feel like you are threatening or attacking a person, right? So there are things that adult feminine friendships require, adult friendships amongst women require, that they're not in congruence with our childlike definitions of friendship. Okay? Because again, adult friendships require effort. You're not going to want to keep showing up for somebody who's not pouring that effort back into you. Communication, healthy communication. If I try to bring a grievance to you and you experience it as attack, and because you experience it as attack, you go into your mean girl shit, and then you want to say every mean, nasty thing you ever thought about me, that's not going to help a friendship maintain itself. That is going to lead to rupture that may not be reparable, right? Compatibility. If you are only happy sitting at bars, gossiping and flirting with strange men, and your friend is shy and does not want to talk about other people and would rather be at a museum, that is an incompatible friendship. And that's okay, right? Let them go with peace. Doesn't have to be drama. You don't have to verbally abuse. It doesn't have to be a Real Housewives of Atlanta blowout. But compatibility is a necessity for adult friendships. It's very rare in adulthood that you're going to see that stuff that's idolized in teen movies where one person's a cheerleader and the other girl's on the mathletes, right? Compatibility is necessary. And then also, again, emotional maturity. Being able to use your emotional maturity for discernment to understand, when am I taxing this person? Or when am I in a situation where the person is not giving back in equal measure? Those are all important things, right? Let's talk about some of the biggest friendship killers. So I mentioned one, and I want to talk about it again because this is something that we fuck up on a lot as women, and we have to hold ourselves accountable to it. And I put it at number one for a reason. When we mistake gossip as intimacy, that is a friendship killer. Gossip is not a form of intimacy. In fact, it's the opposite of intimacy. Intimacy is supposed to bring you closer to a person. My allergies are acting up, so if I keep rubbing my nose, I apologize. I know it's not professional, but you know, it's a lot going on with the weather in Atlanta right now. But gossip is the opposite of intimacy, right? Intimacy is meant to bring you closer to another person through shared vulnerability. Gossip is meant to other another person. It is literally meant to dehumanize them and turn them into nothing but a source of entertainment. Okay? Some friendships are built entirely around discussing other people. So that friendship in 19 years that I mentioned to you, it got really boring when I wanted to talk about life experiences and what I've learned, and the other person just wants to talk about the gossip or the drama they learned about from somebody from college over Facebook. I've not been around these people in 20 plus years. No, I don't want to gossip about them, right? If no one was being criticized, would these two people have anything to talk about? I'm going to repeat that. If no one was being criticized, would you and that other person have anything to talk about? If the answer is no, you have a friendship based off of gossip. And that is a friendship killer. Here's the other reason why this is a friendship killer. Not only will you grow bored and you will find yourself starting to avoid one another because you literally don't have anything to talk about unless you're gossiping, what do you think is going to happen over a little bit of time? When they run out of other people outside of the friendship to gossip about, when they run out of things to gossip about from social media and pop culture, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to become the source of gossip. You're going to become the source of gossip. And then the same behavior that you were fine with when it was other people, you are going to then feel wounded by. So your hypocrisy is going to come back to bite. In the words of Monique, the clown will come back to bite, right? So that is one of the biggest friendship killers for adult friendships. Sitting around and being able to laugh and gossip about other people is not a sign of friendship. That is not a way to develop intimacy. It is not. It's a way to develop triangulation, which we will talk about a little bit, right? Let me read some of the comments. I remain open to friendships with others because I allow myself to be hopeful and not be jaded. Absolutely, absolutely, Aisha. I've been able to remain hopeful with my romantic relationships. Why can't I be hopeful? Thank you. I would love to see more women have that mind frame. We will give men, or if you are queer, women and theys, we will give them a multitude of chances to break our heart, right? I've watched women take men back after some egregious things, physical violence, fucking their credit up, isolating them from their family. But a woman asked the wrong question at a dinner party, or God forbid they miss your birthday dinner and you never talk to them again. We are unnecessarily hard on our female friends. But when it comes to romantic relationship, we give people chance after chance after chance. My mother wound has impacted my friendships. Thinking I'm not likable and people won't accept me. Yeah, mother wounds, and that's another class. I've taught it before, but I think I'm going to revisit that conversation for one of the monthly What About Your Friends. Your mother wounds can have a direct impact on how you show up with other adult women in your life. Absolutely. And you know, it's so crazy to me that you feel that way because I think you're fucking adorable. I like you tremendously. You are very likable. And so even that, the false beliefs we have about ourselves, how they translate into how we show up with other people. Because that's not, I'm pretty sure that's not how people experience you. So yeah, gossip. Gossip is one of the first friendship killers. Second one, competition. Competition is a friendship killer. Why are you competing with your friends? Why are you competing with your friends? Your friends are not your competition. They are not here to take away from your blessings. What's meant for you is meant for you, right? I say this all the time. I cannot be in community with people who move from a win-lose mentality. I always operate from win-win. Right? If I operate from win-win, then there's no way that the people I love can lose because it doesn't have to be a competition, right? And this is something that we have to be really honest about. And what do I mean by competition? Say you are feeling like your career is not progressing or you're stagnating in your career. And your homegirl gets a promotion. And in her excitement, she comes to talk to you about her promotion. But because you feel stagnated and you see women as competition, not collaborators, but competition, you take personal offense to her wanting to share her good news with you. And then instead of it being the sharing of good news, you interpret it as bragging. And then we go back to what is the number one intimacy killer with friendship? Gossip. So then you gossip about her. Or you say underhanded, nasty things because you are viewing her as your competition. And what do we want to do to our competition? We want to eliminate them. We want to bring them down to size. Your career is your career and it's what you're responsible for. Other people don't have to stagnate when you stagnate and stall. And instead of seeing her as competition, figure out what she did to get into that space where she's getting promoted at her job. Maybe she has some game or some wisdom to give you. Again, win-win, right? But when we operate from win-lose and we see our friends as competition and not collaborators, their successes are a threat to us, right? Another way that I see women do this a lot, competing with relationships, right? You can't just love your person because they're your person and that be enough. You got to feel like you got the best relationship and you the baddest bitch and nobody loves you more than your man. And then so any win or success they have in their marriage, you go out of your way to shit on it and bring it down. They buy a new house. Well, their house ain't as big as mine because we got this much space and this many feet. Okay, good for you. Let them have their marriage and be joyful in their marriage. But again, that only happens when you see your friends as competition and not collaborators, right? This is another one that's really bad. Income. Counting other people's money. Counting other people's money and making judgments on people based off of what you think their money is. Or projecting things onto them based off of what you think their money is. It's really mean-spirited. It's the easiest way to lose friends, right? Another one, bodies, weight loss. We do this a lot as women, right? And that goes back to that gossip. Noticing when your friend has lost or gained weight and using that as a way to bring them down to size, using that as a way to cut at them passive aggressively. We can be better about that as women, right? Popularity as well as business success. Those are also ways that we engage in competition with women who we should be nurturing friendships with, but instead we see them as competition and not collaborators, right? That's why I posed that question at the beginning. How many times have you found yourself in a position where somebody has fallen out with you because they've inherited somebody else's beef or upset with you? And that is a way that women will weaponize their popularity against one another, right? I'm not getting along with her, so therefore you don't have to get along with her. Actively putting projections and lies onto another woman because you are weaponizing your influence instead of using it for power, using it for good, right? Those are all ways that competition can show up and kill a friendship. Those are things that we use to kill friendships. Some women celebrate your struggles more comfortably than they do your success, right? I've shared with you guys a number of times the friendship of 19 years that I had that fell apart. And they have been saying nice nasties and making underhanded comments, but in my fucked up Taurus way, I was choosing to ignore it and giving a lot of chances. But it was when I went into business for myself. It was when I went into business for myself and they witnessed me have success in a very short period of time that they were not able to give for themselves. And they had their own small business for years. That's really when the clause came out. If you want female friendships, you have to learn how to exercise compersion. And I'm using the language of compersion on purpose because it is one of those phrases that we understand in terms of romantic relationships, but we don't stop and think about how to use that in terms of friendship and community overall. What is compersion? Compersion is the opposite of jealousy. Instead of seeing somebody get something and thinking, I want that, how do I get it? You see somebody get something and you feel nothing but joy and admiration and gratitude for their blessing. And a lot of us, and we don't want to admit it, and I'm using the language of we because this is a collective conversation. I've worked through this. I'm the biggest cheerleader for my people, right? But a lot of us don't know how to operate from compersion. We operate from competition. And we don't want to acknowledge the fact that that is the thing that is killing our friendships in adulthood. Another friendship killer, triangulation. I mentioned it earlier with the popularity, right? When we feel threatened by other women, we will triangulate. We know about triangulation because it's a narcissistic tactic, right? And this is why I'm starting to try to challenge myself to talk about narcissism less and less, because we hear narcissism and we automatically think of narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissism is a habit. It's a set of habits and traits. And even some of us who think that we are the best people in the world can engage in narcissistic behavior at times. And if you've ever engaged in triangulation, you were engaging in a narcissistic behavior, right? Triangulation is when you isolate somebody else through gossip within a community or a friendship circle. You isolate them from other people and you weaponize those other people, those flying monkeys, against the person you are trying to isolate on purpose. That is triangulation, okay? What happens is you have a beef, you have a discomfort, you have a dislike with another person, and instead of you putting on your big girl panties and being woman enough to address it directly, you will recruit allies. If any of you guys listen to my old podcast, this is what single Black female used to do to me all the time, okay? She did not like how honest I was, how comfortable I was in my sexuality as a bisexual woman, how comfortable I am in my body as a bigger bodied woman. There were a lot of things that she did not like about me because those were things about herself that she was not comfortable with. And instead of doing the personal work to figure out how to be comfortable with those things, she would recruit allies against me. I can't tell you how many people I met for the first time that treated me like complete and utter shit through her. And then when I would mention it, like, yo, this woman is in my house being rude to me, she would act like I was crazy or I made it up. And then I had to find out years later that these were people that she would go to and recruit to dislike me, recruit to see me as somebody who victimized her. And it wasn't until they met me, some of them had their own experience of me that they realized like something in the milk ain't clean. The vast majority of them just decided that they were just never going to like me because, again, they'd already been recruited as a flying monkey, right? This is a dirty, ugly, nasty behavior. And if you are somebody who does this, you have to be honest with yourself about how it is keeping you from having intimate relationships, okay? And if you are a grown woman who decides that just because your friend says, I don't like her, that you then don't like her, grow up. Grow up. You don't have to be an enabler. You don't have to be a flying monkey. You wouldn't want it done to you. You're probably hearing me talk about this and can realize a time that it's happened to you. So why are you doing it to other women, right? Borrowed resentment and inherited opinions will not only keep you from meeting and getting close to people that are actually really good for you, that have something to pour into you. It is something that is going to lead to a lot of regret in your life, okay? You can be socially loyal without inheriting other people's opinions. And it's a part of your responsibility as an adult to figure out how to do that and what that looks like, okay? The fourth thing that can lead to death in a relationship, that's a big relationship killer: poor communication, running from difficult conversations, ghosting people when things get tough in the friendship, right? Being passive aggressive. We are too old. If you are over the age of 19 and when you have a beef with somebody, you take it to Facebook instead of to them, grow up. If instead of saying something directly to somebody, you have to be passive aggressive, let it go. That is killing your friendships, right? Another one that really sucks, expecting your friends to mind read. It is not your friend's responsibility to anticipate your needs. It's nobody's responsibility to anticipate your needs. And if you have a friend that was not able to read and figure out the signals and anticipate your need, that doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that, they don't value your friendship. It means that they're just not a mind reader. Okay? So when you expect mind reading from the people that love you, that's poor communication. And you have to work on that. Healthy friendships require difficult conversations. Healthy relationships, period, require difficult conversations, right? If your husband goes to Vegas and he loses $1,000, are you going to divorce him because it was the first time you ever did that? Or are you going to have a difficult conversation where you set boundaries? If you can do it with your husband, why can't you do it with your friendships? If you can do it with your husband, why can't you do it with your cousin? Right? A lot of us don't have healthy relationships because we don't want to have difficult conversations. We're moving again from this childlike understanding of friendship where we believe that friends are just there to make us feel good. They're just there to have happy times and happy moments. No, real relationships, real platonic intimacy requires difficult conversations. And if you are a person that ghosts people, runs away from people, engages in passive aggression rather than having direct conversation, expects people to read your mind or anticipate your needs instead of setting healthy boundaries, you cannot be surprised that you don't have healthy friendships. Okay? And then the last relationship killer that I think is really important is emotional scarcity. Emotional scarcity. Of course, I'm going to bring an abundance conversation into a friendship talk. I don't know how else to live, right? When we are operating from scarcity as opposed to abundance, then we think that friend is my friend and I can't share her with anyone else. We think if my friend wins and they elevate beyond me, then that means I'm a loser. If they win, I lose. When we operate from scarcity mindset, we want to keep people stagnated and small so that they can be close and near to us. Instead of understanding that their abundance and elevation, just by the nature of energy, will trickle over into our lives. We also think that friendships are scarce. So we don't know how to share our friends. We get jealous when they talk to other people. We get jealous when they make a new friend. And when we bring emotional scarcity into our friendships, it will drain and exhaust healthy relationships over time. And those people will burn out and they won't let us have access to them anymore. Okay? So those are all 5 things that are killers of friendships, okay? Gossip as intimacy, competition, triangulation, poor communication, and emotional scarcity, okay? Now, how do we discern when a friendship is healthy? How do we know that a friendship is healthy, right? It's simple. What makes you feel safe? How do you know when somebody is safe in your life? Now, if you can't answer that question, that's totally okay. I'm going to give you a few pointers, a few things to look out for. And I want to encourage you to try to test these out in your life, okay? You are safe in a relationship when somebody celebrates your wins, right? They celebrate your win without having to bring you down at the same time. There's no nice, nasty. There's no passive aggression, right? The friend I mentioned earlier who got intimidated by me starting my small business and it taking off and thriving, they listened to me do a coaching session one day because, and this is a habit I have to work on. Anytime they asked me to come over or do something for them, I would drop everything I was doing and run to them. And I had to do the coaching session at their house. So they overheard it. When I was done with the session, instead of them saying, oh, that was good or whatever they heard, They said, you need to go ahead and get your little psychology degree because you just need to go ahead and become a therapist because you're just wasting your talent. That's not a compliment. That's not a compliment. And when I said to them, hey, that's not a compliment, oh my God, I can't say nothing to you. You always getting defensive. No, that was nice, nasty, right? You could have just celebrated me because I took the risk of prioritizing my coaching practice and people were responding well to it. You could have just left it at that, right? If you have a friend who does not know how to celebrate you without minimizing you, without changing the subject, without disappearing when you have a win, that happens too. There are people that will literally just disappear when it's time to celebrate you. You celebrated them for the opening of an envelope, but when you have a win, they're nowhere to be found, right? If people in your life are doing that, they either aren't a good friend or they don't know how to be a good friend to you. You have to make the decision. Do I set a boundary? Do I articulate that this is happening? And do I have the difficulty of walking with them through it? Or is it happening so often that I just got to cut my losses, right? Another way to know if you have a good friend, they are willing to repair conflict. Conflict is a part of life. Even with people you love down, you are not always going to see eye to eye. You guys have heard me say before, may she rest in perfect peace. Love my mama down. I was a huge mommy girl. Me and my mama beef. We would have beef. We would have conflict, right? Conflict is a part of life. It is not avoidable. And a lot of times the presence of conflict is not the issue in and of itself. The avoidance is, though. Avoidance of conflict is being in a win-lose with conflict, that 5 of Swords energy, that I'm going to win at all costs. I don't care how much damage I give to you in the long run. That is an issue, okay? Healthy people apologize. Healthy people clarify. Healthy people stay and work through the difficulty. If you are a person that just needs to lash out when your feelings get hurt and run away, you do not have healthy communication. You do not know how to communicate like a friend. So no, you cannot be surprised when you look up and you either don't have genuine friends or people don't want to befriend you. Again, conflict is a part of life. It is as sure as rain. It is as sure as the clouds in the sky. It is as certain as the sun rising and the moon rising as well. Okay? Conflict is going to happen. Being somebody who is about repair as opposed to winning or being right is what dictates whether or not you will have friends. Real friends, okay? Another sign of a healthy friendship, they allow difference. It ain't nobody else like me in the world. That's one of my affirmations in the morning. And I love saying that to there's nobody like me in the world. I am a blessing. And I say it as a flex because I experience it as a flex. But you should experience that about yourself as a flex, right? That's an illness of social media. People want their friends to be carbon copies of them, right? They want friends that are photocopies. I remember Erica Banks said that. I don't know if you guys know that the rapper Erica Banks. She said she didn't want to be friends with women who didn't have BBLs. She said all her friends had to have BBLs, right? I think that's an illness of social media where we want our friends to be carbon copies of us. Real friendships are built on difference. I love that I am so different, but part of me having a friendship circle that is vast and diverse means that when I hit a lesson or a bump in the road and I don't know how to deal with it, I can go into my diverse friend group and get help and support, right? My friend Andrea is nothing like me. My friend Danielle is nothing like me. My friend Michelle, absolutely nothing like me. but I can go to them for difference of opinion, and it's a steel sharpening steel kind of situation. It is okay to allow your friends to have different politics, different spirituality, a different income level, a different personality, right? Agreement is not intimacy. Respect breeds intimacy. People don't have to live a photocopy life of you. Your friends don't have to look, breathe, think the same way that you do. In fact, it's best to have friends that are a little bit different, because that is what's going to make your life more vast. Okay? Another thing that'll help you understand whether or not a friendship is healthy. Your friends aren't collecting information to weaponize against you. Your friends aren't collecting information to weaponize against you. I repeat, friends do not collect information to weaponize against you. Okay? Curiosity is different than surveillance. Curiosity is you getting to know a person more intimately so that you know how to show up for them in friendship. Surveillance is what cops do. They collect data and information so that they can lock you up later. And if you are with somebody who is constantly doing data collection so that they can either weaponize it through gossip or weaponize it through social abuse in an argument, that is not your friend. I've had former friends, I've had a former mentor who operated this way. I had a friendship, when it ended, they threw my family's abuse in my face. I kid you not, this person, I will never forget the words they said. You always somewhere trying to reconcile with your family, and people are sick of hearing about your family. They're a bunch of terrible people. She said my whole family was full of terrible people. Just because she knew that I was physically abused by a couple of elders. And she said that my whole family was full of terrible people. And she had been sitting on that for a long time. That was not a friend. I had to learn the hard way that that was not a friend. Anybody who is collecting information about you to weaponize against you, either through gossip or through harm and conflict, is not your friend. And what happens way too often is when we experience somebody who behaves that way, instead of understanding like that's a poor behavior on their behalf, we internalize it and we carry that shame. You are not responsible for the ways in which people mistreat you. You are responsible for allowing them to have continued access to you. Those are two different things. But again, curiosity is different than surveillance. Some people are gathering information because they want to connect with you more deeply. They want to develop intimacy. Some people gather information so that they can weaponize it against you later, so that they can triangulate you from other people later, so that they can gossip about you later, so they can use it to abuse you in a fight because they want to win. They don't want to reconcile. Okay? Those are not safe people. And here's the main one that will save you from even having to go through the list of things that I just previously named. And it's so simple. And I wish that we would listen to it more. Your nervous system relaxes around people who are safe. Your nervous system relaxes around people who are safe. I remember there was somebody in my life who other people around me were trying to coerce me into friendship with this person. And this person pointed out that when I'm around them, I don't put my purse down. I didn't even know I was doing that. And they made a big deal out of it in front of other people. Why you clip every time I'm around you, you clutching your purse. You think I'm gonna steal? You think I'm gonna steal? Subconsciously, it wasn't that I thought that they were gonna steal. I was ready to leave. My nervous system was so agitated around them that I felt like I had to be prepared to pick up and leave. when I was around them. So I wouldn't even sit my purse down. Wouldn't sit my purse down, wouldn't take my shoes off. That's a sign. If your nervous system cannot relax around somebody, if you feel unsafe, if you feel like you have to have an exit, if you feel like you have to perform or shrink, walk on eggshells around somebody, they're not safe. They're not safe. I believe that this last one, your nervous system can't relax, that trumps every one of them. But I will go over them again for you because I know some of you guys are taking notes. Things that will help you discern a healthy friendship. Do they celebrate your wins? Do they celebrate your wins without minimizing them, without nice nasties, without disappearing? Is this a person that's willing to repair conflict? Are they capable of apologizing? Can they clarify a misunderstanding, right? Are they willing to stay or do they run away and just take the grievance to other people? Do they allow you to be different? Are you allowed to speak about your spirituality? Are you allowed to go through ebbs and flows with your finances? Can you talk about politics with them openly? Right? Are they collecting information about you to weaponize against other people? Or are they showing genuine curiosity about your life, about who you are, right? And then finally, is your nervous system relaxed around them? We don't need to be dealing with any kind of illnesses. We don't need to be wearing out our bodies and our psyches in this way. We don't need to be around people who our nervous system can't relax around, right? I want to talk a little bit about, before we wrap up, because I think this is really important. And I think this is one of the things that we miss, even in adulthood, especially in adulthood, right? Which is we have to be the love that we want to receive in the world, okay? We have to be the love that we want to receive in the world, right? So let's talk a little bit about what it means to become the friend that we want to have, okay? I think it's important regularly as a part of our own shadow work to tap in with ourselves and ask ourselves, what kind of friend am I becoming? That's so important because a lot of us want things from other people that we are not willing to give to them. Again, we want villages, but we don't know how to be a villager, right? So, are you keeping confidences? If somebody shares something with you that's really tender and private, does it stay with you? Or are you going to hop off the phone with them the second they share it with you and call that person that you know is a little jealous of them or a little suspicious of them or who don't jive with them and gossip about them? You want people to keep your confidences. Can you keep other people's confidences, right? Are you capable of celebrating other people's wins? You don't got to give me an excuse to celebrate nobody. I celebrate holidays that aren't even national holidays. Two of my favorite holidays are coming up next week on the 29th. National Lipstick Day, National Chicken Wing Day. What do you think I'm gonna do on that day? I'm gonna buy me a new lipstick. I'm gonna give me some chicken wings, right? I will celebrate anything and anybody for anything. That's why I'm excited about other people's birthdays. If you find yourself in a position where you feel like nobody ever celebrates you, are you capable of celebrating other people? That's something that you really got to ask yourself, right? Are you initiating contact? That's a big one. Do you initiate contact? You sitting around counting the weeks and the months that ain't nobody called you. When was the last time you called or texted somebody? Now, again, reciprocity is important. So you don't want to be the friend who is always initiating, but you also can't never initiate and then be surprised that you feel alone, right? Are you capable of apologizing? Everybody don't know how to apologize. Yet apology requires you naming the transgression, naming the breakdown, saying that you're sorry, committing to doing better, and this is the one where people fuck up, Following through on that commitment with changed behavior. I had someone in my life, a Scorpio in my life a couple years ago. In true Scorpio Taurus fashion, our falling out lasted a period of 6 months. And every couple of weeks during that 6 months, that Scorpio would do something else extremely disgusting and nasty towards me. Just unnecessarily nasty towards me, either engaging in triangulation or writing something petty and passive aggressive on the internet, telling parts of my intimate history to other people that was nobody's business, right? And every time I bought that to them, they would just apologize, but they wouldn't change their behavior. And they kept saying, I'm not going to keep apologizing. I don't want you to keep apologizing. I want you to stop. I want you to stop. Saying sorry without meaning it would change behavior is manipulation. It is not an apology. So if you want friends that are capable of reconciling in conflict, you have to ask yourself, am I capable? Do I apologize? Do I respect boundaries? Am I somebody who's keeping score? Because if you are that, but you don't want that, how can you expect to attract friends that are not incongruence with your own behavior? Okay? You also have to be consistent. Are you a consistent person? Right? Friendship is built on consistency. It's built on reliability, right? Not intensity. We conflate chemistry for compatibility way too much. And some of the most narcissistic, predatory people come on with intensity. Intensity is not going to sustain a friendship. Compatibility will. Reliability will. Consistency will. Okay? So I want to wrap up because I've gone over time. I told myself I was only going to be in here for 45 minutes. Been on here for more than an hour. Not everyone is your person. Not everyone is meant to be your friend. And that is okay. The same way that you did not give up on love just because one relationship or one date didn't go well, I strongly encourage you to do the same with your friendships. Okay? If one friendship doesn't work out, okay, that doesn't mean that you give up and say, I hate all bitches. I'm so tired of crossing paths with women who claim they are spiritual and brag about not having friends. God does not exist in isolation. God does not want us in isolation. You will have your strongest spiritual experiences in community. Isolation, that healing that comes from isolation is temporary. It is not meant to be a lifestyle. Okay? Not everyone is meant to be your person, and that's okay. If you try to have friendship with somebody and it doesn't work out, that doesn't mean that you give up on friendship as a whole. Not every friendship is meant to last forever. There are people in our life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. Some of my strongest friendships in college, I don't even know where those people are. It's not beef. It's not that I hate them. Life took us away from each other. But I just remember very fondly the role that they played in my personal development, in my political identity development, right? It doesn't have to be beef. The ending of every friendship doesn't have to happen as a result of conflict. Let people go peacefully, right? And my mama used to say this, and I know it's going to sound conservative, and I know some of you guys are going to be like, well, I'm not trying to be a lady. I'm going to share this wisdom anyway. A lady knows how to leave. A lady knows when to leave, and she knows how to leave. Yes, my nail is broken. Don't look. So it's okay if a friendship doesn't last forever. You don't have to beat up on the person just because the friendship is ending. People are watching. Nobody's talking. Nobody's been saying anything for the last 30 minutes. Please put a comment. Please let me know what's going on, okay? Let's see. Outgrowing people isn't a failure. Sometimes distance is wisdom, and that's okay. Healing doesn't make you less discerning. It's supposed to make you more discerning, okay? So if a friendship isn't for you, that's okay. What did you learn from it? that's going to allow you to sharpen your skill set so that you can be a better friend for the next person you come across. Okay? One of the greatest myths that we inherit about friendship or friendship ending is that the other person has to be a villain. That is not true. You can leave environments without having to villainize another person. And if you are the only way that you know how to leave a friendship or a space is by villainizing other people, that's a character issue. That is a character issue, and I strongly encourage you to really deal with it. You can grow apart from people. You can outgrow a space. You don't have to turn another person into a villain. Sometimes there was betrayal, and we should name that honestly. Nobody's telling you to deny your lived experience. But sometimes people simply grow in different directions. They have different levels of capacity, or they reveal that their values no longer align. That is fine. Those things can happen without you having to villainize another person or them turning you into a villain. Okay? Discernment isn't about assuming the worst in a person. It's about recognizing who consistently demonstrates mutual respect, accountability, and care. Okay? Healthy friendship isn't based on perfection, but it is built on reciprocity. Okay? So that's what we need to be using our discernment skills for. Once you have the discernment to realize that somebody doesn't share the same morals as you, go ahead and either let them go or just deprioritize them. Maybe they don't need to be your best friend. Maybe that's somebody you check in on once a season. But you don't have to turn them into a villain, and you don't have to rip their character apart. That is triangulation, and that will lead to something that kills your other friendships as well. Okay? But these are all things that we need to be mindful of as adult women in communities who want friends, who want to build villages, who don't want to be in isolation. These are things that are going to help us not only figure out who are the people that are for us, but are we being what we believe we are? I have to go there because I've had some experiences this retrograde from people, baby. A lot of us aren't in integrity with who we believe we are. A lot of us have one idea of who we are, and our actions are not in alignment with that. Okay? So practice discernment. Make sure that we are being the friend that we want to be. And learn how to have conflict. Because again, conflict is a part of life. Running from it is not going to help you. Okay? We are now at the end of the live. I did have a reading to go with this, but there's only a few people here today. So I don't know if people even want the friendship discernment reading. I guess I'll save that for another live because I don't want to force it. It's not enough people here. But I want to give some updates before I leave. I will be back here on Tuesday. We're going to be talking about Venus in Venus and Libra. We're going to be talking about Venus and Libra. And we're also going to be talking about the full moon that's taking place next week. So come back on Thursday at 8 p.m. for another Astro Hour segment. I'll also be back on Sunday at 7:30 p.m. as always for our weekly energy reading, our weekly wisdom reading, okay? So moving forward, you won't just be seeing me twice a week for lives. I'll be here Tuesdays. Every other Tuesday I'll be here. Every Thursday I'll be here, and every Sunday I'll be here, okay? I also want to let you guys know that I will be launching a coaching program, a 12-week coaching program called the New Chapter Method on September 22nd. It will be my inaugural cohort for this program, this coaching program. The month before that, on August 23rd, I will be doing a 4-hour workshop intensive that gives a little bit of an intro into the coaching program. and that will be the new chapter workshop, okay? If you're interested in learning about the new chapter workshop or the new chapter method coaching program, click the link below in the description box to join the WhatsApp intake group and get a little bit more detail. I'll talk about it a little bit more on Thursday as well, again, because this is my first time going live on a Tuesday, so we don't have a whole lot of people. So I'll give a little bit more detail on Thursday and on Sunday as well. It is the 21st, which means that we have about 10 days left for the July monthly specials. So the gold and shadow reading, which is the financial health and wellness reading, as well as the Rich Beard body wash, will still be on sale until August 1st. If you have not had a time to book your reading or purchase your body wash, click the links below so that you can get those discounts before they go away. And also the Rich Beard Prosperity Ritual will be taking place August 10th through the 14th. If you'd like to learn more about it or sign up for this next round, click the link to that in the description as well, okay? Thank you. This is really helpful. I'm glad that you were able to tune in. I hope that this was helpful for anybody who watched it. Please share the link wide and far. As I've said before, I'm still trying to grow the channel. I really, really would love to get to 500 subscribers on YouTube by the end of summer. And we have less than 50 people to go. So if just one of you guys who tuned in today recommend to one other person, you guys can help me get in there in no time, okay? Love you all. Put your questions in the comments. I do read the YouTube comments, okay? We'll be back here Thursday, 8 p.m. for Astro Hour. I hope to see you all there. Take care. Bye.